York. If you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. Well, easier said than done. Home to the world's most renowned art schools, museums, and galleries, New York continues to lure creatives with a vision of artistic success. But what does it really take to make a name for yourself on such a competitive art scene? My name is Marzena Jarczak, and in the second season of Unseen, I'm traveling to New York to talk to curators, academics, and critics about their impact on the artists' careers. I will visit museums, galleries, artist studios, art residencies, and foundations to learn more about the diverse ways an artistic formation can take. And as always, I am taking you with me. Even if talented by nature, artists follow academic education to master their technical skills. I'm visiting the studio of Darą Birnbaum, one of the pioneers of American video art. Trained as a painter and an architect since the 1970s, Darą has been exploring ideological and aesthetic features of mass media through video art and installation. She is now a lecturer at School of Visual Arts, where she continues to share her experience with the younger generation of artists. I'm about to talk to her about the role of educational institutions in helping artists find their voice.
I was the first person to bring video to Princeton to teach. I taught on a double fellowship there. One of the fellowships was the same one, I'm very proud of it, that Einstein had. I taught at Yale. I liked some of it very much. I've lectured at Harvard. I taught at Cal Arts. There were some wonderful people there. With the students at that time, I had to guess what drugs they were on as to how to teach them. It goes on.
What does it mean to be a good teacher?
I teach the way I wish I would have been taught. I take teaching now, even though I do it part-time, I think more seriously than I ever have in my life. And I think I may be the best I've ever been in my life.
And could you tell me a bit about your teaching methodology?
Everyone is different. I am going to assume that there is barely a person without talent. Is the talent in the arts? I don't know. But I'd say that everyone on this planet has something to give. And if they have the fortune to go to a Princeton or they're given a scholarship, and they can be with some of the best minds, really, that were in this century, how do you take them and open them to receiving that? How do you not destroy who they are?
So what is your method to help the students preserve that?
Be a good shrink.
Okay, so being a good art teacher is more about being a good psychologist than teaching practical skills?
No. No, that's who I am.
Okay.
Where do you find authenticity? And it doesn't just have to be in the arts. Now, if you're a scientist in a lab, you better know lab procedures or you're going to blow it up. I think the people who are best at that are the ones who should be teaching that, maybe. Probably with me, it's more about finding identity, doing what I love about the arts, which is finding a way to challenge, to question. I think we do have good people like at SVA who can say, you should be practicing on, which happened last term, what am I saying? You should be practicing on a smaller canvas. When you manage that, you'll go to a larger canvas. It's not my way of teaching. Because I don't know if that's right for the student, to be honest with you. It's a good exercise. The same as piano. If I didn't learn my scales, well, it helps a lot. But I think I do best with mind or something, mind and heart. Mind and heart.
And that happens in a conversation with your student, or how do it's a conversation? And it's a conversation that is focused only on the work or on something else?
It's a conversation that the central core is what they are trying to express through who they are. We all change all the time, but to achieve an understanding of who they are, not who the art world is. And if they're in the arts, this is my hope, that they want to say something to others in the art, through their art. And that art, I hope, should have a consciousness that allows them self-questioning, because To me, great art comes there, but also takes that question to others. For now, being older, I will do anything for my students. The reason being, I feel that it's my responsibility, that I have two responsibilities at least. One is that I feel I've been given a talent. And I feel that it is my responsibility to utilize that talent as best I can. Two is that as a human in a world that has not gone exactly the way I guess I thought it would, that I have experienced a lot, and I will do anything to give my experience over to other people who are younger. Anything.
And what are the things you think students will never learn at school from a professor but have to discover themselves?
What is their path?
And the path would be what? The means of expression, their voice?
For me, I think that it's simplistic. Great art comes from being in touch with your heart and your mind. And there are a lot of things out there that can shut that down.
The traditional academic path is not the only one artists can follow. Art residency programs allow them to work in new environments and deepen their practice through self-teaching. I traveled to Bethany, Connecticut to visit the Josef Anni Albers Foundation. Apart from preserving the modernist legacy of the Alberses, the institution offers residency programs where official school diplomas are not required in order to be admitted, opening up alternative learning opportunities. I'm about to talk to Nicholas Weber, the foundation's executive director, and Fritz Horstman, its education director, about their approach to supporting artists.
Josef and Anni Albers were very dedicated to educating artists, first at Bauhaus, then Black Mountain College, then Yale. How does their not only artistic but also educational heritage inspire the mission of the foundation?
Their educational approach was to give people an opportunity to experiment, to go in their own direction. Josef and Annie both believed in the necessity of learning technique. A degree of factual knowledge was important, but the most important thing was the opportunity to experiment and to be pioneering and to go in your own direction. Regard to the approach to education, the very first time that I met Josef, I had tried to put myself together in what I thought was a respectable way to meet someone from the Bauhaus in clean corduroy pants and a decent sweater. And my car wouldn't start that day, and I had to get underneath it and hammer the fuel pump with a rock. So when I arrived at the Albers' house, I had quite a bit of grease on my trousers. And Josef looked at me and without even saying hello said, "What do you do, boy?" And I said, "I'm studying art history at Yale, sir." And then he said, "Do you like it, boy?" And I could not dissemble. And I had to admit to him that I really didn't like it because I felt that I was losing my passion for looking at artworks. There was too much information, too many footnotes, and not enough emphasis on the real experience of painting or of looking at painting. It was very much the example of the Alberses. Although they had been at the Bauhaus and at Black Mountain, they emphasized that both of those institutions had been glorified. And what was most important to them was to have the means to push their own art in new directions without intrusions. Annie and Josef were creating. And I learned that the act of creating, the process of working, can be the most liberating and wonderful experience.
What is your main objective in supporting the process of artist development?
The studio program here in Bethany, as well as the programs in Senegal and in Ireland, are really set up to give artists space and time, and particularly here, to provide solitude. The Alberses both relished the opportunity to be creative and to have time alone in their studios, and we try to provide the same thing for artists now.
And what are the criteria the artist must meet to be able to get qualified for the program?
There's no single criteria that we are looking for. artists who are selected, we have decided are serious about what they're doing, that there is a certain clarity in their vision, but there's no need that they do anything remotely resembling either Josef or Annie's work. We do have a number of artists who are painters or weavers or textile artists of some sort, but that is not an expectation. They could be doing absolutely anything. There was an artist many years ago named Susan Caporial, is a great painter. In the 2 months that she was here, she didn't make a single painting. I never asked her exactly what she was up to, but every time I went into her studio, there's a large table in the center of the studio, and there was this pile of paper that was growing on this table. And I never pried. I didn't want to ask too many questions, but she said she was writing notes to herself, and each note was just on a slip of paper, and there must have been 2,000 of these notes by the end of 2 months. And those went back to her home studio, where they became paintings of some variety. For both Josef and Annie Albers, in their own teaching, in their own classrooms, in many cases, there was no right and wrong answer. It was simply a matter of listening to the materials and understanding that the materials will tell you how to express yourself or they should be expressed. And I think that in the residency program, not only is there this vast opportunity to listen to materials, there is this requirement to really listen to yourself. I don't think a lot of people spend 2 months nearly alone in their lives. That's just not how most lives are set up. And frequently artists will arrive and there's sort of an arc to it and there's no prescription here, there's no one way that it always goes, but typically there will be a sort of a honeymoon period where the first 3 or 5 days are like, oh my God, I'm at the Albers Foundation, everything's perfect. And then there's this sort of crisis that happens where they think, oh, what am I doing with myself?
Because you have to confront yourself with yourself.
I'm alone, and what are my ideas are no good, and there's a crisis of some sort. And typically after some 2 or 3 weeks, an artist will enter a flow period. And that flow time just disappears. And that's really what we're after, is that moment when the self is not in the way of the creative act anymore. Well, we hope that artists leave with a great deal of creative momentum. We don't by any means require or hope or expect that they will have found the answer to something. And if anything, we hope they found more questions. And perhaps they have discovered in the space and time that we provide a new way of being in their own studios, so that when they go home to wherever home is, they can
keep the flow flowing?
Yeah, exactly. Keep the flow flowing.
Artists can create in solitude, but the input of other professionals can bring a completely new perspective to their work. Follow our next episode to learn more about the role of the art community, from critics to curators, in reshaping the process of artistic formation.